evening, everyone. I think we can begin the program now.
You know, taking midges. One of you guys turn your so there you go. Taking midges into the stream realm and kind of out of the lake realm, where so many of us fish chironomids under an indicator on a sinking line on a regular basis. But just kind of looking at it from a stream perspective, do you think that midges are far too often overlooked in Oregon waters by anglers that might be fishing, the Deschutes or the Crooked or the Fall or the McKenzie? And how do you think that they're a more important food source for the fish that oftentimes gets overlooked?
Well, I'm going to say that and first we're distinguishing streams here as Jeff did from lakes. Lakes, midges are critically important. On streams, I'm not going to use the word they're often overlooked. I'm going to say they're sometimes overlooked. And I'm also going to say they're really easily overlooked. And on streams, we'll have to ask Rick to confirm this or deny it, but midges on streams are typically really small. Not on lakes, they tend to be bigger, but on streams, a size 16 would be a pretty big midge in my experience. And more often they're 18, 20, 22, and sometimes they're 32. And that's really too small for me to imitate. But so they're easy to overlook. And if you're on a stream and fish are taking what I call invisibles, then suspect midges. You may not even be able to confirm it unless you have a really fine mesh net to go out and displace the trout, get in where they were rising, suspend the net in there and see if they were really taking midges, or maybe catch one if you can do that, or get one that Hafele caught or Scott caught. But anyway, so if you're frustrated, if you're frustrated on the stream, my end note here is suspect midges and take 2 zebra midges and see me in the morning. But I'm going to say that I don't imitate larvae on streams. I do imitate them sometimes on lakes, not very often, but on streams, I don't carry any larval patterns. I do carry pupae pattern and use them the most, and the only one I carry is, you all know the zebra midge, right? It might be the one fly you should have instead of what these boofuses thought you should have. 18 and 20 zebra midges are what I carry for midge pupae, and that's what I'm going to use if I suspect midges. And I'm going to put them under a little indicator, like Jeff said, a little pea-sized indicator, usually of yarn if I'm fishing these things. But anyway, one thing I'll note here is one of my experiences on the Bighorn River, which is in eastern Oregon. Schollmeyer and I used to fish these things right at dark, and there's these cottonwood trees, and there'd be the silver light of the fading sun would come through, and then there'd be a cottonwood tree, and you'd have a dark strip of water and then a light strip of water alternating. So what we would do, about 6 inches apart, we would put a white indicator and a black indicator. And what we used for the black indicator was actually a black-winged size 16 dry fly that was a midge pattern. But anyway, we would use these 2 colors of indicators, and as it went through these patches of light, from silver you'd see the black one, then there'd be a cottonwood tree and you'd see the white one. You could always see where your fly was. So remember that if you're fishing these little overlooked midges in eastern Oregon, I'll say. But sometimes you need 2 colors of indicators instead of 1 so that you can follow your fly. So for the pupae, I use that. I also use Sills Midge Soft Hackle, which is a size 16. All it is peacock herl and a turn of partridge hackle. That's all there is to it. Size 16, you can't get it much smaller because peacock herl doesn't go much smaller, and also the partridge doesn't go much smaller. But I've caught a lot of fish on that, actually fishing with Sylvester Nemus, if you know who that is. I had to whine. Whining, that was one of the first times whining really worked. I'm fishing with Sylvester on the Madison River in a snowstorm, and there's a midge hatch, and he's just happy as heck because he's catching fish crazy. And I'm trying to fish dry flies, and I can't catch them. Number 1, because I can't see my fly, and number 2, because I can't see when a fish takes it. So I went over next to Syl, and I kind of whined a little bit, and Syl gave me a couple of his flies, and I went away and started catching fish. So it shows you the importance of whining. It's not just a theory. So that's for the pupae, Sills midge and zebra midges. And for the adults, I don't imitate the adult itself. When I've got into the adults important, it's almost always been as clusters. They just gather up in clusters, and you just, what I do is I tie a size 16 Adams, and I put an extra palmered hackle on over the body, and that's my cluster midge. And that's what I've caught more fish on that as a dry fly. It's the only dry fly I carry for midges on streams. So it's a very, very few flies, as you can tell. And I don't use them a lot. I have used them just below the dam on the Deschutes when I had access to that. And I've used them on the Crooked River, and I've used them on a few other streams since Jeff has kind of asked me to stick to Oregon. But I have to say I've used them more out of Oregon. On the Cimarron River in New Mexico, I've used them. On the Bighorn River in eastern Oregon, I've used them. And again, if you're frustrated by invisibles, always suspect midges and try a couple zebra midges. Fish them, a foot apart underneath an indicator, a foot deep, and try it anyway. Or swing a Sills midge soft tackle. That's that.
Brilliant answer. Thank you.